Hey guys, welcome back. Now, after this most annoying mid-cycle top, everybody wants to know the big question. When is the next big explosive move coming to crypto? I think we can all agree that 6 long months is enough time to wait. After all, this is meant to be the bull market, right? Well, instead of just sitting on a mountaintop chanting hopium vibes, what we can do is to look at what's happened in the past, and then we'll have a good idea of what may be coming next. And for this, we need comparisons. And in this video, I have 5. Firstly, a very spooky comparison as to what happened in 2016. Then the closest comparison we have to when the Fed cut rates for the first time in the last cycle in 2019. Then, as we're about to enter Q4, we can then compare quarters and see how does Q4 compare. Then we'll do a nice comparison against the pre-halving years. And then finally, what happens when a new president is elected? Is it a good thing or a bad thing? So as you can see, quite comprehensive, but by the end we'll have a good idea as to what may be coming next. Okay, so first up, there is a bit of a spooky thing going on right now and what happened in 2016. Check it out. And so the first comparison is 2016, and shout out to Ben from Into the Cryptoverse for pointing this out. And this is the Ethereum chart. So whenever we talk about Ethereum, it's a very good proxy for the altcoin market as well. And what it's highlighting is what is going on right now to what happened in 2016. And the reason it's a little bit spooky as it takes it from January to the end of the year, and so far it's been exactly like for like. And this is going back, 8 years ago. So January, both months were green months, then Feb, green, 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 red, red, green, green, red, 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 green, and September so far is green. So far it's following 2016 exactly. So this does predict that October, November, December, unfortunately, are all going to be red months if history repeats. So a couple of things to point out on that. Obviously, this is the worst case scenario out of the 5 comparisons. Hopefully it doesn't keep on doing what it did in 2016. However, worst case scenario, even if it did, so this was your October, November, December, look at what happened the following year. One of the most explosive moves Ethereum had ever seen. And can you imagine going through, similar to now, this 6-month downturn, getting disheartened, wanting to sell your ETH, then all of a sudden a terrible month, and just think about the people that sold here. So this is when Ethereum was about $5 to $10. And if you'd have sold here, it then went on to $1,400. So even though it may have been a terrible 3 months, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 12 months from now, it really wouldn't matter. Another way to look at this data is this way. So this is just Ethereum monthly returns, and it's pretty much the same data. So we're looking at 2024 comparing against 2016. Now, I'm not sure why these two aren't filled in. Now, depending which data you pull from, this was a green month. So it was green, green, and it follows green, red, green, triple red, green, and then predicting the 3 red months, which is what would happen here. So for me, this data set, because it's going all the way back to 2016, and Ethereum had only just launched late 2015. So this is really its first full year. And as we know, when we talk about Bitcoin, when Ethereum's like $5 or when Bitcoin is about $1, when you go back that far, for me, this data is just not useful. So although it's the worst case scenario out of the 5 comparisons, I also think it's the weakest data set. But this is predicting 3 red months. Now we move on to 2019. And again, we're looking at the Ethereum chart, so more representing Ethereum and altcoins. And this comparison is because it closely relates to what happened with the Fed's rates, as interest rates were climbing, keeping rates higher for longer. And then this is a comparison to the rate cut cycle. So it's actually 2019. Now, the reason this one is concerning is that monetary policy is very correlated to the crypto market. As we've talked about a lot with liquidity and interest rates, it does relate, probably even more stronger than the Bitcoin halvings. And this one for the Q4 is predicting a relatively flat October and then a negative November and a negative December. Interest rates were first cut here, and it did take at least a month, maybe 2, before the market started to fall. So there is a real possibility that October, November, December, if a bad recession were to hit, if unemployment were to spike and people get fearful, this is a legit comparison. And this too would predict a weak Q4, with November and December being the worst. Now, the next comparison is all about quarters. As we're about to enter Q4, how does Q4 compare against Q3, 2, and 1? Well, let's start with Bitcoin, and this is what we're looking at down here. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, out of the 4 quarters, it is the strongest quarter out of the 4, with an average of almost 90%. In fact, it's a massive quarter. So this now flips extremely bullish for Bitcoin, followed by Q1 being the second best, Q2 being the third best, and Q3 being the worst. Now, when it comes to Ethereum and likely altcoins, it's actually Q1 that is historically the strongest quarter, followed by Q2, then it's Q4, and the worst one is Q3. And if we check out what Ethereum's done in Q3, it's certainly been the worst quarter. But 1 week to go, we are moving into Q4. So although it's the third best out of 4, it's still positive. So this says to me that if we compare quarters, then October, November, December is going to be very good for the entire crypto market. The fourth comparison and this time it's comparing the halving years, as right now we are in a Bitcoin halving year being 2024, and they happen every 4 years. So last one being 2020 and the one before that 2016. So now we can see what has happened in previous halving years to give us an indicator as to what may be coming next. So we look at the one in 2020 and September, it was coming off a bit of a negative month, even though this time it's positive. But then I always like to look at the month before, as it helps give a good indication for where things are going. So -8, +7, where this one +3, but -8. So not too dissimilar leading into Q4. And this suggests that October is going to be a boom month, November being even better, and December being even better. So if it's anything like the last halving year, it's going to be a great 3 months. Another bullish comparison. And if we go back to 2016, again, very similar couple of months leading into it, but again, October is good, November is good, and December was great. So if we compare against the previous halving years, it suggests Bitcoin is going to have a great run, and Ethereum and the altcoins, it's a similar but not quite as bullish picture. So we're coming off a negative 22% for August. September so far is positive, which is not too far off. There was a nice 25% here, but then negative here. So a similar run into Q4. This suggests if it's like the last halving, it's going to be a good October, an amazing November, and a very good December. And if we go back to 2016, so this was actually our first comparison, and it's also a halving year, and this one actually is negative 17, 22, and 6. So you could say this is mixed results. There's not a lot of data, one being positive, one being negative. You could say this is equal. But for me, after studying large amounts of data for many, many years, there is certainly a principle of recency. So the further you go back into a data set, the less useful the data. If you were to look at the stock market 100 years ago and see what it did, because it's such a different time, it's not as useful as looking at the last 20 years of the stock market. And similar here. Once you go back to the birth year of these cryptos, the data just goes bananas. When it's jumping up 200% and almost 200% again, the fluctuations are so big, it's not that useful. So even though there's one bullish, one bearish, I would say because this data is more recent, it's more relevant. So I'd say for Ethereum and altcoins, it leans to bullish. That would be my interpretation. And then finally, what happens when a new US president gets elected, as this is also an election year as well. So going back to Bitcoin, and this time we're looking at November. So November is when a new president gets into power. And then obviously December is the knock-on month. So if we look back, the last one, this was when Biden got in, and obviously a massive month for crypto, 42%, and then following almost 50%. So if this were to follow suit, it's going to be an amazing end to the year. And then this is when Trump first got in, and it was still positive, so 5% and 30%. So a new US president, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, I think Trump would send things ballistic, but even if Kamala gets in, I still think crypto will do okay. It just won't give the crazy explosion I think will come if Trump gets re-elected. But you have to say, US elections seem very positive for crypto. And finally, Ethereum. Last time, a 60% run followed by 20%. So amazing run last time, and then the time before that, again the 2016 comparison, again the halving year comparison, and this time overlaid with a new US president. This was the last time Trump got in. Interestingly, down 22%. And if we remember, this is when Trump was actually negative on crypto. And since then, to be fair, it's been a lot of years, and Trump has certainly flipped bullish. So I'd say overall, again, using the last principle of recency, I think this scenario is still bullish for crypto. So pulling all this together, what does it mean? This was all about answering the question, when is the next big bull run coming to crypto? Firstly, we had the comparison to 2016, which was a bit spooky as it's following it like for like 9 months in a row, and it predicts October, November, December will all be red. It's the worst case scenario. And so for me, 2016, I think as it's the birth year for Ethereum, it's just way too volatile, way too early to be a good dataset. Then we had the rate cut cycle of 2019, which says that October will be green, however November, December will be red, so far not good. The rate cuts of 2019 is very concerning, as monetary policy is very powerful, probably even more so than halvings. However, the good news on that is that even if we get another 3 red months in a row, it just means that the entire cycle will be stretched out longer. All the gains will still come, it will just be delayed by another 3 months, so it's not all bad. Next, we had the quarters, and for Q4, it is the best quarter for Bitcoin. However, for Ethereum, it's the 3rd best out of 4, but still overall positive. Next, the halving years say that October, November, December will be great for Bitcoin and likely good for Ethereum. And finally, I think a Trump win would be bullish for the entire market. So I say, let things unravel as it unravels. If it is next month, then great. However, if it's delayed till January, then so be it. It's still coming, it's going to be big, and it will be well worth the wait. So there you are, guys. As you can see, as promised, this was quite comprehensive. However, now you should have a very good idea of what has happened in the past and what is likely going to be coming our way. If you do have any questions or comments, then post them below. However, just remember to get rid of 100% of the comment spam and trading bots that plague YouTube comments. We are trying out the new SuperThanks Commenting system. So to get your question or comment read and replied to, or just to say thanks, then use SuperThanks below. And for now, just to say, if you did enjoy anything in the video, then drop a like, and a big thank you to everyone who does, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.